Welcome. This session is on basic sign vocabulary, and it's a tutorial for those who work with students with autism. We will be providing you with many opportunities to practice sign language throughout this session and providing you many models. We hope you enjoy it. I'm Mike Miklos from the Pennsylvania Training and Technical Assistance Network, and this is
Tanya Brown from the Pennsylvania School for the Deaf.
And Tanya will be teaching us all the signs we learn in this session. We're really lucky to have her here with us. So let's start by learning a couple signs. Are you ready, everybody? Here we go. All right, now we're going to teach you some signs, as we'll be doing throughout this session. What we want you to do is to watch the signs being modeled, and then we'll pause for a minute and you can practice them at home. Tanya is going to be our teacher. Tanya, you ready to teach me the first set of signs?
Ready. Our first sign is book. Book.
Book.
Right. Book.
Your turn. That's right. Book. Next
is dog. Dog.
Dog.
Yes. Dog.
Your turn. That's right. Dog.
Next is cup. Cup.
Cup.
Yes. Cup.
Cup. Your turn. That's right. Cup.
Next is ball. Ball.
Ball.
Ball.
Your turn. That's right. Ball.
Good. Next is candy. Candy.
Candy.
Candy.
Your turn. Candy. That's right. Candy.
Our next sign is apple. Apple.
Apple.
Correct. Apple.
And your turn. That's right. Apple.
Next, we have backpack. Backpack.
Backpack.
Backpack.
Your turn. That's right. Backpack.
Our next sign is jacket. Jacket.
Jacket.
Jacket.
Your turn. That's right. Jacket.
Yes. Next is jump. Jump. Right. Jump.
Do jump, please. That's right. Jump.
And the last in this segment is water.
Water.
Water. Water.
Your turn. And that's right. Water.
Excellent.
Remember, as we go through this session and show you the signs in the little embedded videos, that this session is being recorded, and you can always go back and watch the signs over and over and practice them on your own. That's one of the values of having a virtual session. With that said, the question is, why should we have a session on sign language? Why do such a tutorial? And the issue has to do with some of the core deficits related to autism. And that is that individuals with autism often have difficulty relative to the area of social communicative behaviors. They often don't communicate with other people as often as other more neurologically typical individuals, and they may have difficulty, at least a certain subsection of individuals with autism, acquiring vocal speech. So even though there may be individuals with autism whose hearing is intact, they may not have the necessary skills that allow them to echo or repeat what other people say. If you think about it, acquiring vocal language has the necessity of being able to hear what somebody else says and then producing that same sound. And if you can't produce that same sound, if you're not able to produce that same sound, you're not going to be able to say things in a way that other people will understand. And that's a learned skill. For students and children with autism, the failure to attend to another person will often block their acquisition of repeating what was said. So that kind of learning history does make it difficult for children to learn spoken language, which suggests that if you can't teach someone because they don't echo you, you're not going to be able to teach that vocal language. You're going to have to use some kind of alternative communication. And frequently that alternative communication is sign language. Remember that sign language is externally made movements. The movements are completely visible. All the movements that are involved in sign language are completely visible to the person I'm communicating with. Whereas with spoken language, all of the, or most of the movements, not all, the lips are available, but most of the movements that produce sound are inside my vocal tract and are not visible to the person who I'm speaking with. That makes it really hard to prompt a child to use a vocal language if they can't echo or repeat. Sign language, you can use imitation skills, and you can physically prompt sign positions if needed. Sign language has some real advantages in that area. So the basic idea here is that it's important to use sign language to help certain students, not all students, learn language. And it's going to be those students who lack that echoic repertoire, that ability to repeat what is said to them. Now, there are other ways of teaching children to communicate as well. Sign language isn't the only alternative augmentative communication, and certainly those other methods have value and are necessary in certain conditions. We are not going to spend a lot of time in this session going over all of the advantages of sign language or the advantages of other communication systems. We are going to, however, focus on the skills necessary to teach sign language. Remember that other forms of augmentative communication can include picture exchange systems, writing, and various augmentative devices, such as a speech generating device. Now, some of the characteristics of sign language that make it valuable for assisting students who don't have that ability to echo or produce the same sounds that the person they're speaking with has produced are the following. Sign language is portable. In other words, everywhere the person goes, their hands and body go with them, so that a sign language is always going to be available. And I often joke that I've never forgotten my hands in the morning. I've forgotten notebooks, I've forgotten my computer, but I've never forgotten my hands. That portability is an important advantage to sign language. The low-tech issue means that you don't have to do a lot of programming. You don't have to add a lot of additional steps to the process. You teach the sign and the child has the sign. It's cost-effective. You don't need to pay for complex technology, for programming, for all of the time and energy that goes into producing pictures for picture exchange and so forth. A sign language is what's called topographical. Each sign will have a particular shape. Cow will be different from horse. That topography allows a full range of expression, and it also allows someone to guide their own behavior by emitting signs. So if I said to myself, I'm going to get the pen, I could say pen, pen, there it is and guide it. And my saying pin can guide me to select the pen. I could do the same thing with sign language. The topography, the shape of signs can help us communicate to ourselves and forms a system of responding that can be involved in complex behavior. Additionally, sign language movements can be correlated with movements that produce speech. And I will talk about that in just a minute, but I've been speaking enough. Let's learn a couple more signs. So here are your next set of signs. You ready, Tanya? Help me out, friend.
Puzzle. Puzzle.
Puzzle.
Yes. Puzzle.
Your turn. That's right, puzzle.
Next is tickle. Tickle.
Tickle.
Tickle.
Do tickle, everyone. That's right, tickle.
Next, shoes.
Shoes.
Right. Shoes.
Sign shoes. And that's right, shoes.
Next is cookie. Cookie.
Cookie.
Cookie.
And your turn. And that's right, cookie.
Pencil. Pencil.
Pencil.
Pencil.
Did you do it? Pencil. Pencil.
And next is cow.
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 Go for that moo cow, folks. Cow.
Good job. And next is music. Music.
Music.
Good. Music.
That's right, music.
Next is bed. Bed.
Bed.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead and do it, everyone. That's right, bed.
Good. And then we have drink. Drink.
Drink.
Drink.
Drink. Your turn. You got it. Drink.
Good. Next is computer. Computer.
Computer.
Right.
Your turn.
Computer.
Computer. And the last one in this set?
Sandwich. Sandwich.
Sandwich.
Sandwich.
Go ahead and practice. Sandwich.
Very good.
As I was saying earlier, that sign language is important for assisting students with autism who are not able to engage in echoic behavior to learn an array and a wide repertoire of language skills. There have been criticisms by some individuals who suggest that sign language will somehow interfere with the acquisition of vocal language. Well, there have been frequent studies done that suggest that that is not the case, that use of sign language, like other forms of augmentative communication, actually increase the likelihood that there will be acquisition of vocal communication skills, of spoken language. Sign language has indeed been documented to facilitate that kind of outcome. So there isn't any need to worry that sign language will block vocal skill acquisition. As we talk later on in this training, we will be going over some suggestions related to ways that transition from signing to vocal language can be specifically and planfully addressed. As we are concerned about the development of language in children with autism, we are concerned about them learning to use a full range of communicative behaviors. This means that we are looking at what does the individual say and how does it affect the listener? What are the reasons why a child will talk? Throughout this conference, there are a number of sessions that spell out these relations. I'm not going to spend a long time on it in this session, but sign language can be used to really facilitate the acquisition of what's called a demand. The child wants something, they say it, they get it. And that's often where we start in training basic sign skills in children who are developing language, because there's great value in that. I say it, I get it. Whatever you want in the moment is obtained through the response. It's a natural spot to start teaching language. We also use sign language, however, to teach children to say what they see. And this is called tact training, where the relation is the child senses something, they see, hear, touch, feel something, and they tell the person listening to them what it is they're experiencing. So that I could look at a tree and I could say tree. It's an important skill to teach children. Children also need to learn to become conversant, to respond when somebody else speaks to them. So use of sign language can be used in what's called intraverbal responding. Somebody asks a question, what do you throw? And the child says ball. Okay, that's another function of language. Now, imitation skills are critical to sign language, and Tanya will be involved in another session summarizing interventions that have been done with students who are hearing impaired and learning sign language and also have autism. And that session will talk about the critical role of imitation for learning sign language. Although signs can be physically prompt, learning to imitate may facilitate acquiring signs quicker. Imitation is when an individual watches somebody do something and that individual then makes the same motions. Sign language can also be involved in multiply controlled situations, wherein somebody says to you, who's the person who's sitting next to you? And I look around and I say, oh, it's Tanya. And I'm able to see her, answer the question, and my response is controlled both by the person asking the question and by the sight of Tanya. And Tanya, can you sign your name? I just messed up your name. Tanya. Okay, yes, I'm so sorry. Then there are also modifications of language that we all engage in all the time. These modifications are typically considered in common language, grammar, the kind of facial expressions that go along with our communication. Sign language allows modification of the primary response. So if I'm asking for a ball, I could say ball, or I could say ball. And in the second case, the more emphatic way of saying ball means to the listener, give me the ball right away. I could also do that with words. I could say, hey, can I have a ball, please? Which is more polite than me saying, give me a ball, please. The tone of words alters, and the words I use alter the effect of the primary thing I'm saying on the listener. Luckily, sign language has those attributes, and in just a few minutes, Tanya will be talking a little bit about those kind of issues. This full range of communication functions that is carried by sign language is a real advantage of this system. So let's learn a couple more signs here. You ready? Here we go. Okay, here are the next set of signs for you. Can you help me out, Tanya?
Sure can. Ready?
I'm ready.
Chocolate.
Chocolate.
Good. Chocolate.
Your turn. That's right. Chocolate.
Good. Next is mom. Mom.
Mom.
Mom.
And you do it? And that's right. Mom.
Next is dad. Dad.
Dad.
Dad.
Your turn? And that's right. Dad.
Next is boy. Boy.
Boy. Your turn? It's like boy. It's like the baseball cap. Boy.
Exactly. Then we have horse. Horse.
Horse.
Horse.
Your turn? Horse. Like the horses here.
Then we have girl. Girl.
Girl.
Yes. Girl.
Your turn? That's right. Girl.
Next we have hug.
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 Your turn. Yeah. Hug.
And last for the section, TV.
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 Go ahead. It's TV.
Right.
As I was mentioning before that last set of practice, and I hope you're enjoying the practice. It sure is a lot of fun. I've been just really enjoying working with Tanya to produce those. And there's a lot more coming, so stay ready, folks. But as I was saying, sign language has a lot of advantage, including that full range of communication can be used. It also has certain patterns of use, of production that are regular and consistent. And Tanya, being an expert in this area, will talk us through some of those considerations regarding the patterns that are involved in using sign language. Tanya?
So when we are producing signs, we produce them with our hands, and they have a certain shape, or as Mike mentioned earlier, a topography that specifies the meaning of a word. We use what's called classifiers, and those are hand shapes. So for example, we may use the A hand shape for backpack, for hair brushing. We might use the C classifier for cup or drink. We would use an F classifier for fruit, an S classifier for car or snack. And we may also use a number classifier, like the number 5 for mom and dad. We also know that some signs are used for different words and functions. So we may have the same exact sign, but a different context. So if we're talking about maybe the sign for table is this, it's also the sign for desk. The sign for bathroom is also the sign for toilet. There will always be signs that are the same for a different word, but how that sign is used depends on the context and the meaning function. We know that signs occur in a space. Typically, that's your sign field, and that is about 6 inches above your head and on each side of your body. So my sign field occurs right about here, here, and just above my waist. Most of the signs that I'm going to produce are always going to be within that field of vision, within that box. Signs also have motion and direction. So they might move toward your body or away from your body, depending on the context. For example, if I wanted you to give me something, that would be give me. But if I wanted to give someone else something, it would be give. We also have facial expressions, body position, and the intensity of sign when you are producing signs in ASL. Your facial expressions are extremely important. When I'm asking a question, my eyebrows might go up. So if you want something, my eyebrows go up and my eyes open up just a little bit more. If I'm asking a question, you will most likely see eyebrows go up. If I'm making a statement, if it's a strong statement, then my signs may get stronger and my eyebrows may turn in. Also important is body position. So again, if I were going to give something to Mike, I would turn towards him to give him something. If I was talking about the direction of somewhere, and it's going to start on this side, my signs may start in this area and they might shift to this area. In my work at the Pennsylvania School for the Deaf, I work with students who are deaf or hard of hearing, and we teach primarily in ASL. Our language is complete. Everything that can be said in English can also be said in American Sign Language. You don't lose context or meaning by using a manual language.
So let's learn another set of signs.
Next is cheese.
Cheese.
Right. Cheese.
Your turn. Here it is. Cheese.
The next one's easy. Phone.
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 And your turn. Phone.
Next is cat. Cat.
Cat.
Correct. Cat.
Go ahead. Practice. Cat.
Next is chip. Chip.
Chip.
Chip.
Now your turn. Once again. Chip.
Next we have milk. Milk.
Milk.
Like your milk on a cow. Milk.
Your turn. That's right. Milk.
Next we have soda. You got it. Soda.
Your turn. And you're popping the soda. Soda.
Next is paper. Paper.
Paper. Did this, you did paper.
Good. Then we have socks. Socks.
Socks.
Socks.
Socks.
Next is paint.
Paint.
Right? Paint.
Your turn. Paint.
And finally, hat.
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 Go ahead and practice that. And hat.
Nice job.
One concern that has been often mentioned regarding sign language by teachers and parents and others is the thought that that the parent may not actually be a fluent speaker in sign language. as a teacher, you may not have a full range of being able to use sign language. Certainly there is, it's a beautiful skill to have, to be fluent in another language, and sign language is certainly a language that would be good to be fluent in. But just because you are not fluent and not a full speaker of the language does not necessarily rule out your ability to use sign language when teaching the children you're concerned with. So in general, when you begin instruction for the child you're working with, you only need to have a vocabulary that will extend beyond what the child currently has. You only need to stay a few signs ahead of the child when teaching. This then will allow you to further develop your vocabulary along with your child. Certainly there are benefits to taking a full course of sign language and to studying sign language and becoming fluent. And I would encourage you, all of you who work with children with autism, to do so. With that said, it is not necessary to be a full speaker. Keep in mind that, as we have already mentioned, that for many of the children we're working with, they will eventually morph into using vocal response forms, and you can shape up vocal responding as you're teaching sign language, so that hopefully the necessity of being able to use the full range of signs may not be necessary in many cases. Now, there are some children who, for a myriad of reasons, may not develop vocal language at all. And in those cases, teaching a full range of sign language, the full language, may be necessary. In those cases, it's important that the parents are able to communicate as much as possible in sign language, and that members of the community can be taught to teach sign or to children and interact with the individual as well. Remember that for the most part, you only need to stay a few signs in front of the child you're teaching. And with that said, why don't we learn a few more signs? Okay, let's learn some more signs. Are you ready to help me, Tanya?
Ready.
Okay.
Next is cracker.
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 And your turn? Cracker.
Good. Next is push. Push.
Push.
Push.
Your turn? That's right. Push.
Good. Next is banana. Banana. Like you're peeling
Banana.
banana. Banana.
Peel your bananas, folks. That's right, banana.
Next we have lion. Lion.
Lion.
Great. Lion.
Your turn. It's the mane on the lion. Lion.
Exactly. The next sign is movie. Similar to cheese. Movie.
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 Movie. Your turn. Movie.
Good. And then we have Play-Doh. Play-Doh.
Play-Doh.
Play-Doh.
Go ahead and practice that. Play-Doh.
Right. Then we have coffee. Coffee.
Coffee.
Correct. Coffee.
You ready? Go ahead and practice. And Coffee.
Okay, next we have chicken. Chicken.
Chicken.
Chicken.
And if you did this, you did chicken. Chicken.
The next sign is bus, and we actually use finger spelling for this one. B-U-S.
B-U-S.
Bus.
Okay, remember it was B-U-S. We will go over all of the letters of the alphabet towards the end of this session.
Yes. Next is spin. Spin.
Spin.
Spin.
Spin. Your turn. If you did this, that's spin.
Good. The last of this section is throw. Throw.
Throw.
Throw.
Your turn. And that's throw.
Correct. Excellent.
Okay, let's learn another round of signs. Are you ready, Tanya?
I'm ready. The next one is going to be peanut butter.
Peanut butter. Ready? Peanut butter. Go ahead. That's right. Peanut butter. Next.
Strawberry. It's like you're throwing the stem away from the strawberry after you bite it.
Ah, strawberry. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Everybody practice it. Strawberry. Okay. Strawberry.
Next is string.
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 Go ahead. String.
Yes. Then we have crayon.
Crayon.
Yes. The same as color.
Crayon. And the next one would be glue.
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 You have something sticky on your fingers.
Glue. Go ahead, practice that. Glue.
Next is fork. Fork.
Fork.
Fork.
Go ahead and do fork. Fork.
Then spaghetti. Spaghetti.
Spaghetti.
Yeah.
Spaghetti. Your turn. Spaghetti.
Our next sign is game.
Your turn, everybody. Game. And the last one in this set.
Pig.
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 It's like the fat under the pig's chin, right?
Yeah.
Pig. Your turn. That's right. Pig.
Go.
Well, you may be wondering why we selected some of the signs we've selected so far to teach you. And for most of the signs, they are things that may be familiar in books that children see, or they may be common words that most young children are exposed to. However, there is another reason. Many of the words we're selecting, such as candy and ball, are all signs that may be things that children like and enjoy. Child might like a cracker. And if those are things that the child like, we may be able to use the sign to have the child learn to ask for what they want. As I said earlier, command is a bit of verbal behavior that occurs in the condition of wanting something. In other words, there's motivation in place. The child says what they want, and as a result, they get direct reinforcement. The consequence that's going to increase the future probability of the behavior is directly getting what the child says. So we can use sign language to teach manding. And I'm going to spend a little bit of time now reviewing some of the basic principles of man training, since they relate directly to this issue of the sign tutorial. So the first step in the process is making sure that you're determining what the child wants in the moment. Now, wanting it in our framework is going to basically mean, is there motivation in place? So wanting it is a change in environmental conditions, a change in what's going on around the child at the time that alters the value of getting something, of having some event happen. So when I have been out exercising on a hot July day and I'm out running in the heat, I'm sweating, I'm losing water. At that point, water will become valuable. I'll be deprived of water and water will become valuable, and I'm likely to do something to get water, such as ask somebody for water or go to the refrigerator to get water. And that's when, if I spoke through sign language, I might go to somebody and say, water, in order to obtain water. Okay, so you teach demand under a condition of motivation when something is valuable. Motivation can work in another way, though, that I'm just going to touch on briefly here. Motivation can also be due to a change in conditions. For instance, I could be in a circumstance where I need to store something from my computer onto a portable device that I could give to somebody else, and the file opens up on my computer that I need to share, and I realize I don't have that thumb drive. So I look down, and there it is. There's the thumb drive. So that if I was asking for the thumb, I would need to use the sign thumb in order to ask for the thumb drive. The motivation in this case is not caused by deprivation. It's caused by a change in condition. Seeing the file that I need to give somebody alters the value of having the thumb drive, and therefore leads me to look for it, to ask for it, or do anything that in the past has been successful in obtaining that thumb drive. These kind of changes in conditions that alters the value of things occurs quite a bit. There are situations in which you may want to go somewhere, and to do so, you're going to drive the car. So at that point, your keys become valuable. If you're out on the playground and you see the 4 square marking on the ground and you want to play with your peers, you're going to need a ball. The ball will become valuable. So there's, if you were going to play with the dollhouse, you might actually need the doll. So mand for doll would become important at that point. So these changes in conditions that affect motivation are important, and paying attention to what is important to the child at the time can lead you to teach them to say the right thing for what they want in the moment. As you're going through this man training, a second thing you're going to want to do, if I am teaching the child to ask for candy, I'm going to provide frequent models of what the child is to do before I expect them to respond. So I might have a piece of candy in my hand and I'll say candy as I'm giving the child the candy. I will do that multiple times before I expect the child to do candy on their own, to ask for candy. I'm also, interesting enough, I'm not only signing, but I'm also saying it as I sign. So the child can pair the visual stimulus of seeing this sign with hearing the vocal sound of candy as they receive the candy. That makes the sound of the word candy valuable to the child, as well as the seeing the sign. This goes along with getting the candy. This must be a good thing. It may increase the likelihood the child will use the signed candy to ask for candy. Once the child is accepting the item that's valuable to them in the moment from you, and you have modeled the sign several times, it may be at that point where you'll start to see the child begin to emit the sign on their own, and you can reinforce that. But it could be the child doesn't begin imitating. Their imitation repertoire might be an early learner, and their imitation repertoire may not be that strong. So what you may need to do at that point is jump in and provide a prompt, a physical prompt for the child. So you may take their hand and gently guide it up, and when the hand hits in this position and the child holds it there for a little while, you're going to provide the candy at that point. You're going to provide the consequence that will increase the likelihood that they engage in that behavior, again, in those conditions. Physical prompts are important. You don't want to over-prompt. You want to provide enough of a physical guidance to allow the sign to occur, but not so much where you're doing most of the response for the child themselves. You want to be careful to use the least amount of prompt as possible. For many children, simply showing them the sign, holding out the candy will get the child to imitate the sign. Eventually, you'll just hold up the candy and not model the sign at all and wait for the child to sign candy on their own. That's prompt fading. If you use prompts to help a child learn to ask for what they want, you're going to have to transfer from the prompted to unprompted conditions. What we often do is we'll provide a prompted trial in which the child, we show the child what they need to do to get the candy, and so the child then imitates the sign for candy, and we give a little candy. Then we hold up another piece of candy, and when the child signs independently the second time, we might give them just a little bit more for that independent response. That's called differential reinforcement. Better responding gets better reinforcement. There are times, however, and this frequently occurs with children who are learning sign language, especially in conditions where people aren't careful to teach discrimination skills. In other words, in the presence of candy and wanting candy, I do this. In the presence of cracker and the motivation to get cracker, I do cracker. That is an important skill to teach. You can't teach only one sign at a time. And I'll talk a little bit about that, a little bit more about that in just a minute. But errors will occur. So every once in a while, a child will see there'll be an opportunity to ask for a cracker, and the child will sign candy. In that case, you want to remove the cracker, pause, and then immediately show the child the sign to ask for cracker. You want to error correct quickly and efficiently, but you want to make sure that the error response doesn't control or doesn't result in getting the reinforcer that is actually wanted at the time. This also leads to another key consideration teaching sign language, teaching manding in the form of a sign language. You want to reward independence. If the child walks up to you and they see some candy and they sign candy, you might want to give them a little bit more candy for that independent response. This is something that is frequently missed in sign language training related to teaching demand. Many people will fail to attend to that independent use of a sign to ask for the child asking for what they want. Um, Another key aspect of man training, as you see in the last line on this slide, is that you want to provide lots of fun practice, where you set up conditions where you're going to present many, many different things for the child to ask for and practice throughout the day. The more practice one has at any skill, the quicker the skill is going to be learned, and additionally, the longer the skill will be maintained. Practice is important. And for children who are missing skills, that practice is a result of adults providing the opportunity to ask for what they want. So, as I was saying, most of the signs taught in this session will be used as mands. They are going to be things that the child may want to ask for. So I talked about this already. The man's controlled by motivation. One cannot ask for something unless that thing is wanted. In order to do the man training, we must either capture or contrive manned opportunities. Capturing manned opportunities might involve the child wanting to, being very motivated to go outside and play on the swing, and it might be a chillier day, at which point asking for the jacket will be a natural man to teach. You may have a situation where the child is getting ready to have some snack, and the snack might be a cereal in the bowl with some milk in it, and a spoon becomes valuable at that time, and you can teach asking for spoon at the right time. So that this capturing motivations that naturally occurs is a good way of teaching. Sometimes you have to contrive motivation. You might give the child the ramp for the cars to roll down, and the child might really love doing that, but you don't deliberately give the car. You're contriving motivation. Having the ramp and no car means the child might be more likely to want to obtain a car. So what can you do at that point? You can teach the child to demand for car. The child says car, they get the car. That capturing of motivation is important. Now here, if the child doesn't know how to ask for the car, remember what I just said. That is a point when you would then provide that prompt that will help the child learn to ask for the car. Now keep in mind that for sign language, as I mentioned earlier, there were two kinds of prompts. One I mentioned was the possible physical prompt, where you gently guide the hands into the right position. And the second kind of prompt would be an imitative prompt, where you model the sign. This idea of teaching procedures is all about taking advantage of the environmental control of motivation, okay? So that you're going to prompt when motivation is strong. How do you get motivation in place? Well, you contrive it. You figure it out. When is the child going to be most likely to want something? Motivation can be manipulated in another way. Things will remain highly motivating if you haven't received too much of it, if you haven't had too much exposure to something. So there are some suggestions related to keeping motivation strong for children, such as not using too much of any one reinforcer at any one time. Stopping using any thing that's motivating before it loses its value. That means when you come back to it in the future, it'll still be valuable to the child, and it'll keep the motivation strong. You want to vary the types of things you're using to teach the child to ask for. The motivation, you want to vary the type of things. So you might use a piece of candy one time. You might use the car the next time. You might teach the child to ask for a playful egg on the head. You may... You're going to go between things to keep it interesting for the child. And you also want to use only a little bit of that consequence at any one time. All of those kind of suggestions will help keep the motivation strong for a child and will allow you to teach different mans at the same time. As you're manned training and working with teaching the child to ask for what they want, there are certain types of motivators that will be better to establish and use with a child. For instance, a child who doesn't know how to ask for what they want may at first love going to the swimming pool, but you can only ask to go to the swimming pool one time. And then once you're there, it's over, so you don't get much practice. But if I teach a child to ask for a tickle, I could give them a little bit of tickle and stop. Then they need more tickle. Then I could give them a little bit more tickle. These are consequences, things the child would want that can be delivered quickly. And they also go away. If I use candy, I could give a child a little piece of candy and then it goes away. I could tickle a little bit and then it goes away. The ball, I could throw the ball and then get the ball back and he needs the ball again. This kind of contriving motivation that you can provide lots of practice to ask for things are important. Another critical thing about motivation that I didn't say yet that I probably should have mentioned earlier. If you're going to teach the child to sign to ask for something, what you're doing is you're having the motion of the hands be something the person listening to the child sees. And because their hands are in a certain position, that will control the listener doing what the child wants, right? Now, for that to happen, the person who's listening to the child has to control whatever is available to the child in the moment. This has a lot of implications. If I set a bowl of candy on the table, the child's likely going to go up to the bowl of candy and eat it all on their own. They're going to get it on their own, and they don't need me. So if I want to teach a child to ask for candy, I've got to be the source of candy. I've got to control the candy and only give the candy to the child when appropriate behaviors occur, either when he takes it from me as I'm modeling it early on, or later when the child actually signs to get the candy, or the banana, or the grapes, whatever item is being used for the child at that time. So you want to control your reinforcement when doing man training. You also want to work with motivation items that are related to motivation that remain strong, that the child frequently likes. And that's important. That's why I went over those guidelines a little while ago of how to keep reinforcement strong, because you want to be able to use things that the child is willing to do something to get. They have to be, there has to be enough strength of motivation that is going to bring to strength a quick response on the part of the child. And if you're using very weakly motivating items, you're not going to get that same strength from the child. You also want to consider, and Tanya and I will be talking about this in a minute, the idea that you may have to adapt the use of the sign. So a child may not be able to isolate the finger yet, so you might use an adapted sign. There may be certain signs, such as bus, that require multiple finger movements, and that may be too hard. You might just start with B for bus and sort of make the sign simpler. But you want to make sure that at first the sign or the word used to ask for something is not too hard for the individual student or child to produce. Before beginning man training, you want to make sure that you as a teacher have been associated with the delivery of reinforcers. Now, this has to do with the comment I made earlier that you have to control the reinforcer, so the child can't go get it on their own. They have to get it through you. But you also want to make sure that you're not making it too hard for the child to obtain the reinforcer for you. I have seen sessions where a teacher will be working with a child, and the child likes getting little bits of tape to put on things, and the teacher will hold up the tape like this, and she'll say, say tape, say tape. And the problem is that the child doesn't really know how to do tape. They might not have had much practice, and withholding it and waiting for the child to do it, if it's not a very practiced skill, if they only done it once in a while, is not really going to be too effective, because what's going to happen is the child will respond to the adult as if they are an impediment to getting what they want. So you want to make it easy for the child to get tape. So what I would do is I'd take off a little piece of tape and give it to the child and say, tape. And I'd sign tape as I'm giving it to the child. That kind of making it easy for the child to come through you to get it is important. This is a way of making sure the teacher is paired with delivery of things the student likes. So the teacher becomes a source of improving conditions to the student. You should see in this situation the student readily approaching the adult. If you have a condition where the child looks for you and comes to you to get something, you know you've been established as a source of reinforcement, which it means that you're going to be much more likely to be effective when you prompt the child to use the man to ask for what they want. So remember, this step at first involves delivering reinforcers or delivering things the child wants, those things that would be reinforcers, delivering them freely at first and modeling what the child is expected to do to get those things. So you're saying it and signing it as you're delivering it first. And then, as I mentioned, you'll start the formal man training at the point when the student readily approaches you and is willing to do something to get what you want. That's when you kick in your prompt procedures, using physical prompt if needed, and if not needed, using an imitative prompt, simply showing the child what to do. This certainly has a big implication. The idea is that we can teach sign language to students, even if they don't have strong imitative repertoires, if we're teaching the child to ask for what they want. So a child may not be able to imitate candy, but if I take their hands and help them form it and gently guide them, and they do this and they get candy, the child is going to learn that being in this position gets them candy. And you can gradually fade those prompts. If you're also teaching, and you should be, other signs such as hug or dog, and the child is getting fun things as a result of those signs, they may learn to watch you to do what you do in order to have things improve. So we have seen in our efforts in public schools, children learning imitation skills by first learning some signed mans, some mans using sign language that were taught through physical prompting. Okay, you're going to begin formal man training, as I said, when the student readily approaches adults and accepts reinforcers. And I mentioned this in passing a little while ago, but you're going to need to teach more than one manned right from the start. This is a problem that frequently occurs in man's training. You will have children who are taught only one thing. They learn ball. They love getting the ball, and you've set up situations where they want the ball, you show them ball, and they learn ball, and that's all you're teaching them. As a result, when the child wants something else, such as the hat, they may only say ball. Right from the start, you want to make sure you have motivation here for the ball. You get ball, you get motivation by putting the hat on the child in a funny way or something, and you teach them hat. In the condition where the hat's present and they want it, they say hat. In the condition where the ball is present and they want ball, they say ball. That kind of teaching is important. This relates to a problem I've often seen in sign language. And I want to be clear here, because I'm not saying never teach this skill, but I would advise against teaching it too early. And this is a general command such as the sign, this is the sign for more. And I frequently have seen children taught sign language to ask for what they want. And the first sign they taught was more. Well, the child often quickly acquire more because they learn, I do more, I get the ball, I do more, I get the hat, I do more, I get the candy. And more ends up becoming sort of a universal sign for the child to get whatever they want. So that it's generally better off holding off on more until the child has a broader number of responses they could use. The other issue is if a child came up to me right now, if there's some child here in the room with me and he walks up to me and the child signed more to me, I wouldn't know what they want. It wouldn't help me as a listener. It doesn't help me know what the child wants. But if the child signed candy, boom, child's golden. Yeah, they'll get some candy. The same with any specific sign. So start teaching specific signs right away. And make sure you teach more than one command at a time. So, you're going to, again, in review, after you verify motivation and you've modeled the response form, you're going to prompt the response as the child shows motivation. If the correct response occurs, you're going to deliver the item, and while you're delivering it, you're going to present or you're going to remodel the sign so the child sees the sign as they're getting the thing. After the prompted trial, you're then going to pause and bring up another one of the same items, another tickle. Like you're going to tickle without showing the sign at all, and see if the child engages in the sign response in order to get the same reinforcer. That's a prompt transfer trial. It's a way of building independence. So I might hold up candy and sign candy, then the child signs candy, they get candy. In the next situation, I'll bring up the candy and I'm not going to sign it. I'm going to wait to see if the child signs candy on their own. And when they do, that's when I will deliver. Now, sometimes what you have to do in that circumstance is first time I hold up the candy and prompt it. I show the child what to do. The child does candy. I give him a little candy. And then I hold up some more candy, and I might just do this. I'm not bringing my hand fully up. I'm not doing the full sign. I'm just giving a partial prompt. Some children need partial prompts before you can go to no prompts. Throughout this sort of brief tutorial on manding here that's inserted into the sign language tutorial, and remember, the reason I'm going over these mands is because the first place you're going to do sign training is through getting the child to ask for what they want. That's why I'm spending a little more detail on this, because it's directly tied to this mand training process. So in this tutorial so far, I've talked about fading prompts primarily through running a second trial, where the first thing I do is sign candy, child signs candy, I give a little bit, and then I run a trial, a second trial to fade my prompts with no candy. There is another way of doing that, of fading prompts though, and this is what we refer to as a within trial transfer. So I might show the candy, prompt candy, child then asks for the candy, and I don't give it this time. I just lean in and I start moving it a little close to the child. And then when they sign candy a second time, that's when I deliver. That's a within trial transfer. So the child wouldn't get the candy until they basically have manded twice. That's a good way of doing a quick transfer trial, and it's often one of the quickest ways of fading to independence. Eventually, that second trial transfer is always going to be needed. And remember that the real transfer is when you hold up candy and before you even prompt the child amidst the sign. I talked about manned error correction a little bit, but let me spend a little more time on this and make sure I'm clear. So in a circumstance where you're working with a child and you're teaching the child to learn a variety of signs, and the child has learned to ask for hat, and their cow, their toy cow that walks on the floor with moo moo. They like the cow and they like the silly hat. And you know, the child may only have a couple hands. And when you hold up the hat, the child's reaching for that, they want the hat, and instead of hat, they sign cow. Okay, you want to be very careful. The first thing you want to do is remove the hat. The second thing you want to do is guide the child's hands to a neutral position and then pause. You don't want the child to learn that signing cow will get the hat. Or, and this is another problem that frequently occurs with teaching sign language to students who are acquiring languages. You don't want them doing this, where they're sort of going through all the signs they know in order to get something. That's called scrolling. The way to prevent scrolling from happening is when an error occurs, remove the reinforcer, prompt the child's hands to a neutral position, and then pause a couple seconds. That pause is to teach the child that what sign they just emitted isn't successful. After that pause, you will then immediately present the correct prompt, the imitative prompt for hat. The child will then imitate you and they get the hat for doing this. Error correction is really an important consideration. And then you can also use a transfer trial if necessary. Remember, when errors occur, the child is just doing what they know. It's not, or in this case, what they might not know strongly enough. So what you want to do is simply, pause and correct it. It's not a reason to provide any kind of other additional correction procedures. Simply move the reinforcer, neutral hands, pause, and then represent without an immediate prompt. So we are at a point where we should probably learn a few more signs.
We will now discuss the basic steps in teaching a sign mand.
Cereal.
The sign response form is often used for students who have limited spontaneous vocalizations or weak echoic skills.
Candy.
For sign response forms, the same principles of pairing, modeling, and establishing motivation are used.
Here it comes!
It is often advised to first teach the sign mand response form as an imitation skill in your imitation program.
Bug!
In such cases, modeling the response form will serve as the prompt.
Soda.
When presenting the mand trial, the teacher will model the sign and say the name of the item at the same time.
Soda.
Shaping the sign mand response will require careful prompting and prompt fading procedures.
Good. Cereal.
Fading imitative prompts can be accomplished by modeling less of the sign movement.
Soda.
If the student is unable to imitate the sign, then careful use of graduated physical guidance can be used as a prompt.
Soda.
This means that the teacher will gently guide the student's hands to engage in the correct motion for the sign.
Puzzle.
Remember that prompt fading will be necessary if physical prompts are used.
Puzzle.
To establish sign mands, you will need to reinforce all mands immediately.
Soda.
Okay, so I think that video showed some actual brief teaching moments. Let's learn some more signs now that we know how to teach them. All right, here we go again, folks. Get ready.
Okay. Next, we have hot dog. Hot dog.
Hot dog.
Hot dog.
Your turn. That's right. Hot dog.
Good. Next we have pizza. Pizza.
Pizza.
Yep, like you're folding a slice. Pizza.
Pizza. Your turn. And that's pizza.
Good. Then we have doll. Doll.
Doll. Go ahead and do it. And that's right. Doll.
Then we have bike.
Bike. Your turn. Bike.
Good. Our next sign is bubbles. Just like you're blowing bubbles. Bubbles.
Go ahead and practice that. Bubbles.
Next we have blow. Blow.
Blow.
Blow.
Blow.
Correct. Ready to move on?
Yep, go on to the next one.
Popcorn. Popcorn.
Popcorn.
Popcorn.
Popcorn. Your turn. Popcorn.
Our next sign is video game. Like using a controller. Video game.
Video game. Your turn. Video game.
Good. Our next one is fruit snack. F S K.
And this one's a little hard for me. Fruit snack.
Good.
Your turn. FSK. Fruit snack.
Very good. Next is hairbrush. Hairbrush.
Hairbrush. Your turn. Hairbrush.
Good. And last?
Oops. Go ahead, Tanya.
Table.
Teach me.
Table.
Table.
Correct. Table.
And your turn. Table.
Great.
Okay, let's learn some more signs. Here we go.
Ready? The next sign is roll. Roll.
Roll.
Roll.
And you do it. That's right. Roll. You could even say roll the ball.
Next is gummy bear. Gummy bear.
Gummy bear.
Good. Gummy bear.
Your turn. Gummy bear.
Yes. Next is toothbrush. Toothbrush.
Toothbrush.
Toothbrush.
Your turn. Toothbrush.
The next one is rocking. Rocking.
Rocking.
Rocking.
Rocking.
Next we have airplane. Airplane.
Airplane.
That's
Your
right.
fingers are in this position. Airplane.
Airplane.
Okay. Airplane.
The next one is duck. Duck.
Duck.
Duck.
Duck.
Good. Next is ice cream. Ice cream.
Ice cream.
Yep. Like you're licking a cone. Ice cream.
Ice cream.
Nice. Next we have blocks. Blocks.
Blocks. Your turn. Lux.
Correct. Next is fish. Fish.
Fish.
Fish.
And can you do that? Fish.
Okay, ready for the next one?
Sure am.
Orange. Orange.
Orange.
Orange.
That's orange, like the fruit.
Good work.
As I mentioned earlier, our hope is to expose you to a little bit of some ways of transferring acquired signs into vocalizations. And there are several different techniques for doing so. And this will not be a thorough review. I'm just going to mention them and talk briefly about each step. But know there are sources for increasing vocal behavior that are being covered at this topic, at this session. There will be a session by Amy Ford, Jamie Baker, and Debbie Namey on the idea of teaching better echoic skills for children, developing those vocal language skills. And I would encourage you to watch that session to get more information. I think it's probably pretty closely related to the information that Tanya and I are presenting here on this training. So the first way of doing this is simply to pair sign use with speech. So that as the child is learning a sign, such as a bowl or a turtle, they're hearing the word as it's being used. So the child may come up and ask for the turtle, and you give them the turtle, and as they are getting it, they're hearing the word turtle. That pairing of speech with sign use allows a correlation, a relationship to develop between the sound of the word and the sign that's effective in getting it. This way you'll have like these paired movements occurring, and it establishes the sound of the word as having value. For many children, that alone may lead to the child attempting to imitate some spoken language from time to time. It's an important, I would say, critical step in this process. You want to be careful to avoid, because you're teaching sign language, skipping vocalizing while you're teaching. So the child who comes up and signs ball to you, you don't want to be in a situation where you do that, where you simply sign back and give it to them. You want to say ball. Remember, this session is primarily about individuals with autism whose hearing is intact, so that the hearing of the sound will eventually correlate and go along with the sign. And that will, down the road, hopefully facilitate some acquisition of vocal speech. That is the most basic technique, but it's not a very direct way of shaping up vocal responding. It's important. The second intervention is also not quite a direct process. You're in no way leading the child to produce some vocal responding, but it's called differential reinforcement of any vocal response. So the child might come up and want the ball and go, "Ball!" At which point you throw the ball immediately and say, "Ball!" You know, so that the child gets better delivery of ball when they have vocalized along with the sign. So that you're, and you can also do this sort of anytime you hear the child vocalizing at all, do some reinforcement of those sounds, so that the child learns that producing sound results in good things. You want to be careful early on. What often happens is in attempts to do well by children and well-intentioned approaches to shape up vocal language, you end up, the child says, "Well," when they want the ball, and the first thing we do is say, no, say ball, and you run this trial where the child is forced to say something that they really have a hard time saying, and the whole process, instead of being something in which a child effectively communicates to get ball, they're provided with more trials, and trials that are hard for the child to do. So you want to be careful not to begin this intense echoic training too early. At first, any sound that the child produces gets reinforced. Now, of course, you're not going to stay there. You're not always going to reinforce inexact sounds. You're going to eventually shape better and better responding. And this is differential reinforcement of vocal responses with manding. So as the child is starting to vocalize, they might say, "Oh," at first, and you give a better ball for that vocal. And next time they might do "Paul," where they start producing that bilabial sound. And you might hear a little bit of a "Paul." You know, it's not ball yet, but they're beginning to get in the right direction. That means you'll differentially reinforce that. Remember, you're continuing to model the right sound as you're shaping this up. Then you can begin some formal man training. And in certain cases, if the sign is strong, if the child has learned ball strongly, to ask for ball, and they sign for ball, and you know that sign is going to continue to be used, it may be the time where you can do a little bit more formal teaching of vocal responses, which would be using differential reinforcement of vocal responses within mands. I don't have time to go over in this session all of the details in this shaping process. Again, I'm going to refer you to the Amy Ford, Jamie Baker, Debbie Namey session. The specifics will be spelled out in great detail there, and they are three excellent professionals, and will be able to really get across some of these ideas, as will some of the a session by Tamara Casper at this conference too. So this process will work this way. You hold up the ball, the child signs ball to get ball, and you say all for the child who's going, ah. Now you're going to say all. If the child says all at that point, you're going to say ball and deliver. Once the child is saying all, you may start shaping ball. And then, but you wouldn't run more than 3 trials. If the child doesn't say it, you move it closer, try it again. Ball. And it's only when the child, and after the 3rd time, you're just going to get the sign again and deliver if they don't give the correct response. Again, I am covering this in a very cursory detail, not for the purpose of teaching you to use this technique, just to expose you to the idea that there are some very formal, systematic ways of transferring signed responses to vocal responses. The details of that are included in other sessions that I've talked about. I just want to get across the main point that this sign language use can be very effective in getting a child to speak. And there are also some direct links between the training of the vocal responses that can be derived from use of sign language. The last technique would be direct echoic training, where you run separate sessions and you teach the child to systematically produce sounds when you say them using reinforcement systems. That approach is, certainly I'm not able to cover that in detail here. And again, the sessions I've talked about will address the critical components of echoic training. So basically, a point I had just made subtly on my last conversation was the idea that you sometimes have to shape speech from to to ball to ball to ball. And that happens naturally for infants when they're first learning to speak. You might have, or when they're first learning to speak, you may have an infant who maybe an older infant around the age of a year, or maybe a little bit beyond that, who starts asking for food. They might go, "Ollie!" And they never said broccoli, and they say, "Ollie!" And all of a sudden, the parents are thrilled. The first word, "Ollie!" And it's an amazing thing as a parent to hear that first word. But the first thing the parents do is say, "Nope, that's not good enough. He's got to say broccoli." No, we don't do that. At first, we accept "Owie," and we provide a lot of fun and cheering and good things when the child says that. And we gradually shape more and more adult forms in speech production. This happens, so you have babies who will talk, "Mommy, you go ashore?" And when they start babbling, and actually, you might hear "mommy going to the store" in that utterance, and parents will respond as if that's correct. And how do they respond? They often say, "Yes, mommy is going to the store," and they provide a clear definition, which helps a clear model. Which helps increase the child's ability to accurately say the utterance. The point I'm making is that when children are learning to speak, they don't do it perfectly at first. Their performance is shaped over time, and they get successively better at matching what the adults have said. And as they get progressively better, the criteria that the adults respond to changes. I would not expect a child who's using some of their first words to say broccoli. I would expect them to say "owie." But a child who's 5, 6, 7 years old, I'm going to start saying, "Oh, you mean broccoli." I might help a child at that age say it correctly. The point I'm getting at here is that just like the shaping of vocal speech production, sign language is shaped in a similar way. That sign language is shaped across topography. So a baby who's just learning ball might be ball this way, and we would reinforce it. And then they might do this. They might over move the sign. And we're still sort of shaping. It's getting closer. We might then take this where the fingers are all together. And it's only with successive movement across the shape or topography of the sign does the child improve to the adult form ball. This is much like shaping the babbling of a vocal responder from inexact production to more precise production. The same kind of shaping from inexact production of the sign to exact production occurs. The point of this is that when you are first teaching sign language to a child who needs augmentative communication, you're going to take a little bit slower approach and shape sign approximations first, and then gradually change the criteria that you accept until the child is able to get a more advanced sign. So peanut butter may simply be this, or even this at first. this, that. You're going to accept approximations and gradually shape it up until the child is more proficient at the exact topography, the exact shape of the sign when teaching. How do you reduce this sign complexity as you're teaching? What are some of the rules? Well, you're going to reduce the fine motor details first, so that French fry might be just the open hand and the fingers don't have to be in that F position. You're going to reduce the fine motor details. You might also realize that it's harder to make signs out here in space in that box that Tanya was talking about, 6 inches from your head and out to the side. You're going to start with signs that are grounded. Cracker will be easier than doing something out here as a sign or at the head. Also signs that could be seen. Signs that are at the midline are much easier, okay? So you want to teach close to the body and with light, reduced fine motor and grounded signs as much as possible. So raisins might be like this at first. It's easily, and then only as you get better does it move into only as the child gets better at more refined finger movements would you move into the actual R sign as part of the raisin. You're initially going to teach signs that are less similar in their motor movements, so that candy and apple are similar. The difference is the fine motor, the A versus the point finger into the cheek. So you might not start with apple and candy. You're going to start with candy and ball, signs that have very different planes of orientation in movement, and then you probably wouldn't start teaching apple versus candy until you get that fine motor skill a little bit more refined. This is no different than teaching vocal speech, where you have a child who is confusing words such as peach and reach, words that are so similar that there's going to be confusion. You start teaching with words that have more different topography, depending upon issues related to motivation too, because these things are not simple. You got to decide on where is the motivation, and if the child loves apples and loves candy, and you can get an approximation of both, you're going to need to adapt the sign somehow so that maybe a whole fist is apple and candy would be the whole hand. It's maintaining the idea that the fingers point for apple and that you use the A sign for apple, so it's the fist. Sometimes you just got to think this through. Having people who are familiar with sign and can show you some of the hand motor the ways of reducing motor dexterity is important. Let's look at this for 5 signs that Tanya will show us some ways of reducing the difficulty of these signs. As we just said, for the earliest learners, it's important to have simplified signs to reduce the amount of motor movement that is necessary at first for students learning sign. In order to accomplish this, Tanya's going to show us some way of simplifying a few signs. Would you help us with this, Tanya? The first sign would be cookie.
Right. So cookie we know is this, but we might accept this or even this.
Perfect. Okay. The next sign would be candy.
Right. This is candy, but we might accept this or this.
Now remember, it becomes important to get to this level once the child is doing something like apple, where the distinction is important. But at first, it may not matter. If you could get this, that will be enough in the earliest processes of learning. How about ball?
Ball, we might see ball or ball.
All right, that would be easier for an early learner for ball. What about doll?
Doll might look like mouse. So this is doll, but in the beginning, you might see this.
You might see the child using that. And again, that will become important to sharpen the sign, to get to the adult form of the sign when the child has to know both mouse and doll. And the last sign is hot dog.
Okay, so this is hot dog, but you
Mhm.
might see hot dog.
Reduce sign, hot dog, to make it easier at first. Those are just some examples. Remember, this can happen with almost all of the signs we taught. If those signs are important for the early learners, students who are learning language at an earlier level, who you care for. Okay. Okay. Again, remember that this process of simplifying signs is important. As a child gains imitative skills, their imitation skills may make it easier to teach adult form signs, and you may be able to get away without as much of the shaping and the sign reduction. So teaching imitation skills are important. One thing that I didn't really cover in depth that I wanted to talk about is that frequently the programs you're running with children who are learning sign are going to be geared to helping increase their signed capability, so that one of the earliest programs for many children with autism is teaching them to imitate. So I might do something like this: do this. And then I'll reach over and physically prompt the child to imitate clapping. Then I'd run a transfer job. Do this, and the child imitates when I imitate. And eventually, what I'm teaching there through the process of reinforcing the child when they're successful in doing what I do, establishing that idea. I watch somebody and I do what they do as a class of responses that results in good things. That's what imitation programs are about. When I have taught that to the child, I'm going to begin deliberately teaching in imitation programs the motions that will be necessary for later use of those motions as signs in communication interactions. So I may teach a child a man to imitate movie before I introduce having the child learn to sign movie as a man to ask for a movie, or teaching the child to do this before I teach them to look at a picture and say it's a glove. In other words, to tact glove. I'm going to teach the imitation before, so the child can do the behavior before they are asked to use that sign in for another purpose, such as a man, the tact, or responding to questions. This idea of having your teaching programs interlock to help the child learn is really a matter of artful instructional design. So that if you're teaching signs, it helps to have an easy way of prompting the sign on a trial-by-trial basis. What's the easiest prompt to use? It's going to be imitation. Well, if the child can't imitate the signs, you got a problem. You're going to have to jump to physical prompting. How do you avoid that? Run an imitation program where you teach the signs in advance. This kind of teaching consideration will involve the idea of making learning easy. And how do you make learning easy? Well, there's a technology called errorless teaching. And errorless teaching is a process by which you use a systematic application of prompts to get the skill to occur, and then a systematic process of fading those prompts. So if I'm teaching the child to sign glasses, and I have the glasses, My teaching technique would look something like this. What are they? Glasses. And that's assuming the child has the ability to imitate glasses. What are they? Glasses. I then prompt. I then show them again, what are they? And hopefully the child will respond glasses on their own. At that point, use the sign for glasses. Then I might distract. Do this one and touch your nose. Then I come back, and they're called distract trials. I'll come back and check to see if the child remembers it. What are they? And hopefully the child will sign glasses. This errorless teaching, this idea of providing a prompt right away, has several real advantages in teaching. And these advantages are very relevant to the teaching of sign language. The initial prompt avoids the child making mistakes in the learning process. Therefore, when they omit the correct response because you prompted them, they're going to come in contact with reinforcement a lot quicker, which might make omitting the correct response to be acquired a lot more quickly. So the issue here, though, is if you use a prompt, you have to be able to fade it. Fading prompts is critical. It's one of the steps that are often missed in good teaching, because I said, what is it? Glasses, and the child can say glasses in that condition. Some people forget that that's not sufficient. The child has to be able to sign glasses when they just see the glasses and do it on their own. So we definitely want to use transfer trials to fade prompts. And remember that the transfer trial can be to a fully faded prompt if you can get away with it. It's probably going to allow quicker fading the prompts if that happens. But if the child tends to make mistakes on the transfer trial, you might use a faded prompt. These kind of ideas have been spelled out in some of the instruction basics from this session. My colleagues and I will frequently run 3-day intensive skill training in applied behavior analysis, in which we spend a lot of time going over prompting and prompt fading. So there are other venues beyond this brief synopsis that you can access. So remember, errorless teaching, you prompt, you then transfer, and then you're at the phase where if you stop there, you might not get as much retention of that independent skill performance as if you add 2 other steps, you might get that independent transfer a lot easier. So you do prompted, then you run an unprompted trial, then you distract the child. You have the child do something that's easy for them, and you do a couple easy trials that are different from what you're teaching. Then you come back and check to see if the child can maintain that skill after having performed some other unrelated tasks. It's a way of, okay, distract the child, come back and check to see if they remember. That kind of practice performing in relatively close proximity, but after some distractors, will strengthen the child's ability to emit an independent response without prompting. And then, of course, that is a really good time to provide some direct consequence that the child enjoys, because they just emitted an independent task, or an independent skill that you were looking to see established. This whole idea of using errorless teaching is important for teaching tax, for teaching intraverbals. That's part of the imitation process. In the imitation process, you're fading physical prompts. And this kind of instruction is critical to developing a full range of skills in a child's spoken vocabulary. And errorless teaching is as important for using sign language as it would be for teaching vocal language. And that leads me to say my mantra for this session, which is, let's learn a few more signs. Here are the next set of signs for you. Are you ready at home? Here we go. Tanya?
Next is juice. Juice.
Juice.
Juice.
Juice. Your turn. That's right. Juice.
Good. Then we have spoon. Spoon.
Spoon.
Spoon.
Spoon.
The next one is egg. Egg.
Egg.
Mhm.
And your turn. Egg. Let me show you what we use that for. Tanya, ask for an egg. Egg! Next.
Next is pretzel.
Pretzel.
Correct. Pretzel.
And your turn. And pretzel.
Good. Next we have run. Run.
Run.
Correct. Run.
Your turn. Run.
Next we have squeeze. Squeeze.
Squeeze.
Squeeze.
Squeeze.
Good job. Then we have chair. Chair.
Chair.
Chair.
And your turn. Chair.
Our next sign is grapes. Grapes.
Grapes.
Correct. Grapes.
Your turn. Grapes.
Ready? The next one is up. Up.
Up.
Up.
Your turn. Up. And that could be two hands or one hand.
Correct.
Up or up.
Yes. And the last for this section is toilet. Toilet.
Toilet. And your turn. And that's toilet.
Nice work.
And another short set of signs. Are you ready, folks? Here we go.
Glasses. Glasses.
Glasses.
Glasses.
Glasses. Your turn. That's right, glasses.
Good. Next is marshmallow.
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 Yes. Marshmallow. Your turn. Yes, marshmallow.
Next is swing.
Swing.
Like sit and move your hands back and forth. Swing.
That direction we talked about earlier.
Exactly.
Swing. Your turn. And that was swing.
Next is marble.
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 Marble. You ready? Marble. Go ahead. Marble.
Good. Next is clean.
Clean. Clean.
Clean.
Make it nice and clean. Okay, your turn. Clean.
Our next sign is wash. When we do that.
Look at this. Wash.
Wash. This is one of those signs that has different signs depending on the context. So if I were going to say we were going to wash something, we might this sign. But if I was going to wash my body, it would be bathe.
This one. So we use this for wash the
Yeah, like wash a dish.
wash the dish. Okay, or wash the table.
Yes.
Okay, and then this would be wash the body, right? Okay, so let's practice first washing some objects, like washing a table or washing a chair. You ready? And that's, again, it was wash. Okay, your turn. Go ahead and do wash. Wash. Now wash the body. Go ahead and wash the body. Wash.
Right. And last for the section is tape.
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 Yes.
Got that? Tape. Go ahead and practice. And that was tape.
Nice work.
I know I have made this point multiple times throughout this training, but it's important. So I'm going to reiterate it one more time as we go. And that is, remember to model signs like you would model speech. So if you want the child to learn egg, you're going to have to show them egg frequently so that egg goes along with seeing eggs. If you're teaching a mouse, you're going to model it a lot. If you're teaching things like wash, you're going to model wash. And the child has got to see the signs. Language does not get acquired through some magical ether. It's through interactions with other people. For language to be learned, they have to interact with somebody else, and they have to have a model. Language is culturally established. That means that we learn the language of the people who are speaking around us. So that in Spanish, somebody looks at a thing like this and says table, or says mesa. I call it a table. Sign language, it would be table. So for the child to learn it, they have to hear it, or in sign language, they have to see it. There has to be that visual regard. So remember that you as an adult are responsible for helping the child learn. Therefore, providing an effective model is a central component of helping a child learn to speak. So the other thing is you're also going to say it as you sign it. So if you're giving the child a ball, you're saying ball, you're vocalizing. You're going to say it and sign it if you are naming something the child experiences. Walking down and say, oh, there's a tree. Look, I see a dog. You know, and you can say the things the child sees. This pairing of the sign and the vocal word encourages that transfer from sign to vocal. It also provides lots of opportunities for the child to see the signs being used, and it will likely result in more effective acquisition of the signing. Now, of course, there are going to be times wherein you as a speaker, especially if you're not fluent at sign, you're not going to know the sign. This actually happens in both spoken language and in sign language. And working with Tanya at the Pennsylvania School for the Deaf at times, I've asked, well, what's the sign for this or that? And somebody might say, well, you know, we don't really use that sign too often. I'm not really certain. And I know there have been times where I have been in places, a hardware store, where I'm looking for something and I don't know the name of it. This happens to everybody. So if you don't know the sign when you're working on teaching a child the sign, what I'd suggest is if you do know the vocal word for it, just say it. Just say it. Remember, you're working with children who have autism or other developmental disabilities and aren't necessarily hearing impaired. So you can simply say it, you know, and then look it up later. Find the source of sign language and look up the sign. Hopefully we will work on helping prevent that issue from arising by practicing a few more signs. All right, here's another set of signs if you're ready.
Ready. First is give. Give to me.
Give.
Yes. Give.
Give. And that would be teaching the child to say to you, to give something to you. Give.
Next is go. Go.
Go.
Go.
Go.
Good. Then we have pillow. Pillow.
Pillow.
Pillow.
Pillow.
Good. Then we have walk. Walk.
Walk.
Walk.
Your turn. Walk.
Our next sign is dance. Dance.
Dance.
Dance.
And your turn. That was dance.
Good. Then we have wagon. Just like you're pulling a wagon.
Wagon.
Yeah.
Your turn. That's right, wagon.
Next is mouse. Mouse.
Mouse.
Mouse.
Go ahead and practice. Mouse.
Good. Then we have cake. Cake.
Cake.
Right. Cake.
Cake. We're now going to cover as this section on some additional vocabulary and things that might be related to work or some jobs you might do at home or on a job site. So let's teach some of these signs. Tanya, can you show me the first one?
We'll start with light. Light.
Light.
Light.
Light. Your turn to practice that. Light.
Next is hammer. Like you're banging a hammer.
Hammer. Go ahead and practice hammer. Hammer.
Good. Our next sign is saw. Saw.
Saw.
Like you're moving the saw back and forth.
And that was saw.
Next
Next
is screwdriver.
Screwdriver. And that's with that R hand, right? Screwdriver. You ready? Go ahead. Screwdriver.
Our next sign is trash. Just that.
Trash.
This also means lettuce. Like
Yes. Did you know why? To put this in?
lettuce is at your head
Uh-huh.
and it's a crown.
Oh, okay. So it's like a head of lettuce. Lettuce. Okay. All right. And what's the next? Oh, ready? Okay, everybody. Trash. Go ahead and practice that, everyone. Okay. Trash. Next is vacuum. Vacuum. Okay, everybody. Practice that. And hopefully you did this for vacuum.
Our next sign is bowl. Bowl. It's like sink,
Bowl.
just smaller.
Bowl.
Bowl.
So sink would be bigger.
Mhm.
That's the idea of these signs having a shape. Bowl. Okay, everybody? Bowl. Your turn. That's bowl.
Our next sign is knife. Knife.
Knife.
Knife.
Go ahead and practice that. Knife.
Good. And last is money. Money.
Money.
Money.
Money. Okay, everybody practice money. We're in the money, folks.
Very good.
As we go through these signs, both Tanya and I are very much aware of the fact that we're just exposing you to the signs and you're getting only one opportunity to practice each sign as we go. That, as anybody familiar with effective instruction knows, is insufficient for you to learn. Luckily, this year is a virtual conference, and this training will be posted, and you'll be able to go back and watch this training multiple times, and you can skip ahead to the signs as need be, and watch the signs again and again in practice. I would suggest that if you're going to be using signs, that you practice using these signs often. This also relates to the child who is learning sign language as a form of communication. That it's going to take lots of practice, both in terms of guided directive practice in a formalized system of instruction, as well as providing practice in natural conditions, in lots of different varied environmental circumstances that will allow the child to use the sign for a variety of appropriate purposes. Learning any skill requires practice, and sign language is indeed a skill. And let's learn a couple more.
Yeah. Ready?
I'm ready.
Our next sign is plate. Plate.
Plate.
Plate.
Plate. Ready? Go ahead and sign plate. That's plate.
Very nice. Cereal is our next sign. Cereal.
Cereal. Your turn. Sign cereal. Good. Cereal. Next is
Tree.
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 Yes, we use a 5-hand for that. Tree.
Go ahead and try it. If you did this, you signed tree.
Correctly. Next is turtle. Turtle.
Turtle. Turtle under its shell. Turtle.
Turtle.
Your turn. Sign turtle. Turtle looks like this. Turtle.
Good. Next is bread.
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 Bread. Slicing the bread. Bread.
Bread.
Your turn. Bread.
Our next sign is butterfly.
Butterfly. Butterfly. Sign butterfly. Sign butterfly.
Good. Next is French fry.
French fry.
French fry.
French fry. Your turn. French fry.
Yes. Next is bee.
Ouch.
Bee.
B. Okay, sign it. Okay. B.
Good. Our next sign is bead. It's the same sign as coin, actually.
Again, bead. Your turn. Bead.
Good. And our last sign for this section is snake. Snake.
Snake. Snake. Your turn. Snake. All right. This will be the last set of words we'll be teaching you, although we have some bonus signs coming up in just a minute after this. You ready to teach me this last set, Tanya?
Ready?
Okay.
Next we have desk. It's just like table.
Desk. And your turn? Desk.
Next is flower. Flower.
Flower. If you did this, you're right. Flower.
Good. Next is keys.
Keys.
After putting that key in the lock and turning it. Keys.
Go ahead and practice. Keys.
Good. Next is burger.
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 Your turn. Burger.
Next we have towel.
Dry off your back. Towel. Okay, next one.
Next is sink. Sink.
Sink, like the sink in your bathtub,
Yeah.
in your bathroom. Right, go ahead and practice. Sink.
Correct.
And the last sign of the day,
Our last sign is bacon. Bacon.
bacon.
Bacon.
Your turn. Bacon. Okay. I've already talked about the use of vocal training, so I'm not going to spend time on this slide. But we are going to get into some final signs here that we want you to be exposed to. As we went through, Tanya talked about classifiers, the A hand and the F hand. What Tanya is going to do for us now is sort of coach us through the letters of the alphabet, so you have all of those letters down. So many of the signs that come up will involve using the manual alphabet, and it's a lot of fun to use. I know that I often will practice finger spelling as I'm driving. So if I see a sign, I might go S-I-G-N, and I will practice the use of these alphabetic signs as I go to strengthen them. The next video after that will be counting, and Tanya will teach us to count to 20 in sign language. She will also then review some of the basic colors and prepositions. So let's see Tanya's great tutoring. So many of the signs you'll need to use when working with your children involve the letters of the alphabet. Learning the ASL alphabet is really a great place to start. Tanya, can you teach us how to how to sign the letters of the alphabet?
Absolutely. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, and Z.
Okay, so now let's learn some of the colors. Tanya, can you teach the colors, please?
Absolutely. We'll start with red. Red. Orange. Orange. Yellow. Blue. Green. Black. White. brown, purple, pink.
Now, Tanya, can you teach us how to count to 20 in sign language?
Sure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20.
And these are the last signs of the day. Tanya's going to teach us a little bit about prepositions, just as a sample. Are you ready, Tanya?
I'm ready.
Thank you.
So in sign language, the prepositions tend to follow the sign. In, like you're putting something inside. Out, there. On, off, but you can also use that sign with direction. If I were taking off my shirt, I would just do that. If I were taking off my shoes, I would say off, down towards my feet.
As we went through this training, we were attempting to establish a basic vocabulary that might be helpful in teaching children some basic words that can be used as man's tax and for other functional relations for the people around them and as a form of augmentative communication. We are pretty confident that we didn't cover every sign you're going to need or somehow cover the signs that are of strong importance to particular children because of their experience and preferences. And we also didn't get into a lot of the extensions of language into grammar and more complex skills such as answering questions and so forth. So we are looking to provide you with some additional resources here that are a source of other sign vocabulary. So there are 3 links here, and these are just 3 examples. There are many more available online. There are also some fine online tutorials in sign language that are worth accessing. But here are 3 different sites that are helpful in acquiring signs well beyond the scratching of the surface we did here in this training. Before we go on, I want to make one admission. I only practice sign language when I'm driving with one hand. The other hand is on the wheel and my eyes stay on the road. Okay, we hope you enjoyed this session. I know that I have really enjoyed working with Tanya, and I have seen so many young children acquire signs, and that serve as a bridge for eventually acquiring vocal responding. So the content I'm hoping of this session is very important to you and a starting point in your efforts to help a child learn to communicate. Remember to practice often, and thank you for your participation in all the little practice drills we've had. And with that, I say, bye-bye.